Welcome back, everybody, to another podcast. I'm here with JadeCap, Kyle. Now, I wanted to bring JadeCap Kyle on. I wanted to bring Kyle on specifically because over the last few weeks, bro, you've been absolutely killing. I've been watching your YouTube videos. I've been looking at your progress and your performance. So kind of explain to us how you're in profit right now, essentially $1 million+.
Yeah, thank you, bro. So essentially, I've been trying to pass Apex and get past their trailing drawdown for a while now. Like last year, I was just trying to adapt to the futures market. The beginning of this year, got a fresh set of accounts. Pretty much when NASDAQ was dumping pretty hard, I was able to get the intraday trailing to stop. And I've kind of been building on that buffer. Like really, that's the biggest problem with Apex is the intraday trailing. So if the position goes in your favor and it's like unrealized, it comes back on you.
Yeah.
It like goes against that trailing drawdown. So what I basically did was I kind of sized into the trade and I got the trailing drawdown to stop the first day. And then ever since then, I've been like, stacking base hits basically. I didn't really size up until I got to like 15K in profit. Then I started risking $1,000 per account. Right now, the accounts are at like 61,500 each. So a little bit over 1.2 mil. I got 3 payouts to go before it's uncapped, and then I can withdraw the rest.
And that's just on Apex, right?
Yeah, it's just on Apex.
That you're with?
Yeah.
So out of the total prop firm portfolio that you have, what would you say your total P&L is on that?
On a month?
Yeah.
1.5, I think.
In the month?
Yeah.
30 days?
Yeah.
That's crazy, bro.
Well, maybe not 30 days. It's been the end of January, so 2 months.
Okay, even then, that's for the first quarter, that's absolutely phenomenal. That's really great performance, especially with Apex too, because the most people that, going to Apex, the trailing drawdown gets them.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been trading for 14 years
14
now?
years, yeah, bro, since 2011, yeah.
Would you want to kind of go over your journey, what led you to this moment that you currently are?
Oh man, long story. My friend, I actually dropped out of college. I was a really bad student. So I lost my mom to cancer like my senior year of high school. Went away to college. I was just basically partying, not going to class. So I kind of didn't really have any direction with my life. So I dropped out, came back home. My good friend, like one of my best friends actually that I grew up with since kindergarten, got me into trading. So I went over to his place. He was like, check this out. He was looking at charts. And then, basically I dove headfirst into that, got super interested in it, tried to become profitable for like a decade. And like, mind you, you've been in the game for a while, right? Back in 2011, there wasn't a whole lot of content online. Like people weren't streaming live. People weren't sharing their trades as much. When I had to learn, it was basically a screenshot and like text. Mm-hmm. So like by the time the market was moving around, I didn't really know how these people were operating in the market, and it was very difficult to try and figure it out on my own. So fast forward like 10 years right before COVID, stumbled upon FTMO. And I think the biggest issue with a lot of retail traders is that they don't have the capital to actually trade the size that they want to trade to make a living off of, right? Because I had a decent job. I was making like 6 figures, low 6 figures, 100K. But to be able to stack money, put money into my personal account after like taxes, after saving for retirement, after paying a mortgage, right? It's not a lot. It takes like, months to save up 5 to 10 grand. Most people don't have that in their bank account. So when I saw that opportunity, like right before COVID, I jumped all over it basically. Hit a huge payout. Of course, I had failed a couple accounts. I blew some challenges.
So at that point, when you hit your first huge payout, how many years of experience did you have under your belt?
So my first payout was like 2019. So 8 years before I hit that big payout. And then not only that, but I gave myself like a runway. I didn't want to just leave my job right after that big payout. I was like, I need to stack up enough money. So if this doesn't work out, I could always go back to work or, kind of figure it out. So I kept staying on my job, trading the prop accounts, at least for like another year and a half. And then when I basically doubled my salary in a year, that's when I decided to leave.
Yeah. So what do you think about the online media, the online, I guess, trading space now that so many people come in and you got your first big payout after 8 years of being in the markets, that really they look at trading as kind of like a get rich quick scheme, or they try a trading strategy for 1 to 2 years, drop it, and then try another one and continuously stay in this cycle. What do you think about those people, and what advice can you give to those people that, they're trying to be like, what? JadeCap made it in 8 years, but this other guy made it in 2, right? How can I make it so I make it in 2 years?
The biggest thing for me is to just stick with something. Like you don't know if it works or not until you're staying with that specific strategy, at least for a year, right? Because like a market cycle, could last 2-3 years, right? Like during COVID, when they were just cranking interest rates, like that was just one market cycle. It was just only going up. So if anybody bought the market, right, I actually saw on my newsfeed, like everybody was getting into the market, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were buying crypto, they were buying call options on anything, and it was just paying. But now those people are silent, right?
They're gone.
They probably lost all their money.
Yeah.
So you have to stick with something long enough to find out if it works in every type of market condition. And that takes a long time. Like when I was going through that period of, trial and error, I was hopping between systems. I was, trying to do so many things all at once, and I just could not focus on one thing. And then I found ICT, and I've basically been with that specific style of trading since. And even then, it took me 3 or 4 years before I really got it down. So I think my biggest advice to traders that are coming into space right now is you need to be able to take it slow. And I think that's probably a double-edged sword as far as like the prop game goes, because you could buy these challenges on credit, which is a huge thing, right?
Yeah.
You can't do that. You couldn't do that with like a broker back then. You had to like wire money into your account.
Yeah.
So like right now, a lot of traders that don't have an edge, they're doing a lot of damage to themselves, right?
100%.
They don't have an edge. They're racking up credit card debt, and they just don't really know what they're doing, right? Not only that, but like you're handicapped with the prop firms. They're putting rules that don't exist in like the real market. Right? Like, the intraday trailing drawdown does not exist, bro, in the real market. It
doesn't exist.
So you have to adapt to the rules that are in front of you.
Yeah. So would you say somebody obviously who's a little bit more in the beginner side of things, because everybody immediately hops straight into prop firms?
Yeah.
Every single question that I personally get is like, hey, Raul, like, draw that on my prop firm account. Like, how can I get out of this? And to me, I think about myself. It's like, if you're asking me,
you're not ready.
You don't have the right trading education to begin with. Like, you need to go and you need to actually go through the learning curve, go through the trial and error phase. And when I look at certain people and certain people ask me, it's like, hey, Raul, when do you think I could start really making money if I start trading now? It's like, at minimum, you have to look at it as if you're getting a degree. And an average degree is going to take you a minimum of 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's like, I feel like if you're definitely slightly above average for you to actually start making good money and becoming profitable in 4 years. But everybody has a different journey, everybody has a different path, so it's hard to put like an exact time.
But I mean, like every senior trader that I've talked to, right, it took them years for it to make it happen.
Yeah.
But like, don't put the the timeline of when it's going to happen, because I never had a timeline
Me neither.
of when it was going to happen for me. I was just like,
as long
I love
as
trading, I'm going to keep doing it, and whenever it happens, happens.
Yeah, I was the same exact way. I actually, when I first started trading, I set myself the goal. It's like, I don't care what's going to happen in a year, 2 years, 3 years. I want to see where I'm going to be in 10 years if I do this every single day. That was a mindset that I had from the very beginning. And I don't know why I personally had that mindset, because nobody instilled that into me. It was just something that I had naturally, because in the online trading space, like, there's just so many people making money, and especially social media, you start to compare yourself to other people, and really envy is going to be a big part of it.
Yeah, to me, part of me like doesn't want to post the P&L screenshot, but people don't realize, like, I've been at it for 14 years, you know what I mean?
Nice.
So, like, I could post my P&L screenshots from back in the day. You probably wouldn't be impressed. It'd be like $250,
Yeah.
But you have to work your way up to that level. It takes
100%.
a long time. And, getting into the prop game, it's good because I think it's educational. Like, there's no way that you can keep trading and keep blowing accounts without learning something. You got to learn something. Like, you're doing something wrong, right? And I think honestly, the prop game actually made me a better trader, because I didn't have those, like, I guess, how would you call it? Like, safety guidelines.
Yeah.
Nothing was stopping me from risking 5% on a trade, right?
Yeah.
So I think the prop game was definitely a blessing for me, because not only did I get access to capital, but it like put me in an environment where it's not so like, fluid.
Yeah, all over the place, really.
Yeah, I actually had structure to what I was doing.
Yeah. So going back to your trading system and your trading strategy, you say you trade ICT specifically, and even when you started learning about ICT, that still took you at least 3 years to really get to understand the system itself. So there's obviously a lot of talk on ICT going on online, and him, the individual, as a person who's teaching the strategy and the foundation and the basis of the strategy, which it's crazy to me, because I personally don't believe that why the strategy was built and there really only being one algorithm that controls the market is a thing. But the fact that you trade ICT and you're up over 7 figures this quarter alone goes to show you that there really is.
I'm not even thinking about that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not thinking about like how the market is really operating. I just know that the market is going up and is going down. It's taking money from people and is paying other people, right? I want to be on the side that is paying other people, right?
Yeah.
That's really all trading comes down to. Are you on side or are you not?
So
at the end of the day, You making money or you losing money.
So I think it'd be safe to assume that the people that talk about online, like you need to trade this one way, are just completely wrong, because there's so many different ways.
I was like that too, though. I was like, this is the only way that works. Until I started meeting other traders that were trading something entirely different. And I was like, you know what? There's like 1,000 ways to skin a cat. It doesn't need to be this one way.
So would you really put a lot of it behind, a strategy aside, would you really put a lot of it behind to making at least money in the markets consistently and long term, really down to the individual as to how disciplined they are?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, ICT's content like changed my trading career because it was everything packaged all in one. Like, he went over fundamentals, technicals, like psychology, covered everything in one spot, which kind of made it easy for me. I didn't have to like scour the internet and find different things. But yeah, as far as like the edge itself, definitely is the individual, because I know people that trade ICT that are not pulling numbers,
of course,
that you would think, you know, like if there was an algorithm that you could predict, right, there would be way more people making a lot more money.
100%.
Right.
So then when it comes down to not necessarily your strategy, but more so your strategy around how you navigated the prop firms, what was the ideology behind where you are essentially?
Honestly, like what you just mentioned, you got to have that long-term approach, because like I had a wife at home, I had to pay a mortgage, like I had to think long-term. It wasn't just, let me hit this payout real quick. And that's the problem with a lot of traders that get into the prop game now.
Let me get that.
Is like, payout. Not only that, like let me get funded in a day, let me get that payout next week. But it's like, slow down a little bit and think about where you're going to be 12 months from now, right? Even for the people that are getting consistent payouts, like how do you take that to the next level, right? With like Top Step, you don't have to take a payout, right? If you just leave the buffer in the account, you start building it up. Now you can start sizing more. So instead of, you know, is that $1,000 or $2,000 really going to change your life that much? You know, if you just left that in the account, now all of a sudden you have 1, 2, 3, 4 trades that you can now add more risk to.
Yeah.
But that's only if you're experienced, right?
Yeah, but it's different if you're a little bit of a beginner. To me, the way I look at trading now isn't necessarily about P&L. When I have a green day in the markets and I actually win a specific trade, the way I look at it is, okay, well, this trade made me 5R. I just bought myself an extra 5 trades inside of the market.
Exactly.
And I feel like when it came to that shift in mindset is where I really saw the majority.
You're spending more time at the casino, you're like looking at your chips.
Literally. So at the point where you found ICT, you were how many years in?
So I started trading with ICT in 2017, I think. So 6 years in.
So 6 years in. Would you give a lot of the reasons as to why you're here today due to trading education?
Yeah, definitely. Like I'd spent so much money on education. I still do to this day. Like I'm probably gonna go buy Lance's course, you know, maybe next week.
Same. I'm about to do the same.
Like you have to be able to invest in education, because like there's another perspective that you're not getting.
100%.
And if I have to pay for that from somebody more experienced, I've lost money on education, of course.
Yeah.
Like it's an investment in itself. If you're running this as a proper business, you could write that off.
100%.
You know, like that's something that a lot of people aren't doing. Maybe they're not thinking, they don't have that business mindset. Maybe they never studied a business course and they don't know that you can write off education, right? So even if I spend $5,000 on a course and it doesn't really give me a lot of value, but I find one piece of information that will make me $5,000, it's worth it.
100%.
Even if this person is possibly questionable, right? It might be just something that they say just passing by or whatever.
100%. Right? So do you feel like, well, I guess this is kind of like a multi-level question. Do you think in trading specifically, there's ever a point where it's like I'm done learning, or it's just constant education?
It's constant education, bro. Even this week, like I'm learning something, you know?
Yeah.
I messed up, I broke some of my rules, and it's like you just learn a little bit more about yourself, you learn a little bit more about your systems and strategies, and you just keep refining it. And that's what I love about trading, is it's an endless level, right? If you're trying to level up, once you hit that level, there's always somebody else out there that's doing something more, you know? Like I'm posting, I just had a 200K day today. Somebody out there is doing $1 million a day, $2 million a day. You know, like there's levels to this game for sure.
Yeah, I think that's where the love of the game actually is, because especially for people who are seeking constant self-improvement, and especially if you played video games when you're younger, you want to get to that next level. And it's like you know, you get that feeling of satisfaction by getting to the level itself, and then the money's
because it's frustrating at times when you bang your head against that wall and you're trying to hit the next level. And it was the same thing like with my bank account, just in general. Like every time I hit a new milestone on my bank account, it would kind of like drop off. You know what I mean? And it would be like, damn, I don't know how to manage my money like better.
Yeah.
Like how do I get to that next level? And it's like,
doesn't that like put the fire under your ass to be like, fuck, I was here, now I'm here, I need to get here and more.
Exactly. It's like, are you gonna quit on this or not? Because I think when I first came in, I was definitely skeptical a little bit, but then you see people online that are actually trading for a living, right? And back then it wasn't like crazy fancy, you know, crazy influencers on Instagram. Instagram wasn't even around. You know what I mean? People were just talking on forums like, I trade for a living, I do this, like I bought my house because of trading. Yeah. And just like that motivated me to keep going. You know what I mean?
Like I remember when I first entered this space too, like really influencers weren't really a thing. Like most people were just kind of like, I guess, vlogging and different things along those lines, but like business influencers and trading influencers, they weren't really a thing. Now it's so popular, and I feel like a big reason of that is COVID and why so many people got into the markets. Like I remember I was doing an analysis on the market one day where the market daily, the daily volume was like $3 trillion a day, and like if you look at it now, it's over double, which is insane. And obviously trading got easier because most people, you don't need $25,000 anymore to get past that PDT rule. You don't need to be a accredited investor. You could just really quick download Robinhood right now and you're technically a day trader.
Yeah, they got futures and everything. You go long, short. They're about to drop perpetual contracts for crypto, so you can start going long and short on Bitcoin.
So
like,
it's really,
there's so many options, man.
Yeah, there is, which it's good exposure because at the end of the day, people are going to be weaved out. The people who want to come in really quick, try and get rich fast, they're going to lose their money, they're going to give up and move on to the next thing. But the people who actually stumble upon it and they believe in it and they believe in themselves, I mean, they just completely made a life-changing choice and career for themselves if they stick with it.
You gotta understand that life-changing choice, right? You might not see the results for 5 years, but 5 years for a lifetime of freedom, to do whatever you want, it's worth it.
That's the long-term investment that you're making in yourself right now. It's like, it's almost like looking at it literally as like an S&P 500 where it's like you're gaining 5% a year. So it's like if you gain 5% of knowledge a year, let's call it, then in 10 years, you know, it'll be so much better. But most people don't look at these things that way. Most people want it now.
Yeah, and like now that I'm doing quite well with the trading, I have a lot of people that have wanted to trade. Like some of my close friends are reaching out and like, I want to get into trading. And I'm like, because I've been telling you this for the last 3 years. If you started 3 years ago, you'd be way ahead of where you are right now. 100%. You know what I mean? 100%. You just, you know, study, dedicate some hours into it, you know?
Yeah, because I feel like this is especially when you get into the bigger numbers, right? Because I feel like, you know, when you show like maybe like, you know, $1,000, $2,000 a P&L, people are like, oh, you know, like whatever. But
people are treating it like a hobby. You know what I mean? It's like gambling. Everybody can go to the casino and make $1,000 at the table. Right?
This is a career.
Yeah,
it's what it is.
It's a business.
And I mean, the last 14 years of your efforts are obviously showing now, being up where you're up. You know, and then that's what actually attracts the people to. But then it's kind of.
But they don't see the story that came before that, you know.
They think it's easy. They think it happens overnight.
Now it's possibly easy because I'm just in my office clicking buttons. But
yeah, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Come along that journey with me for the last 10 years and see how hard it was.
Seeing all of the downs, those nights where you just were pulling your hair out, you didn't know what to do, the levels of frustration, the pain. More importantly, like, because the thing about pain in trading specifically is like, you can't describe it unless you physically go through it.
Yeah, sometimes it's gut-wrenching. Like,
yeah, 100%, bro. Like, bro, I remember there was days where I lose 25, 30, 40 grand on specific trades, and I don't
nauseous, right? You end up being nauseous.
It's like, bro, it's disgusting, and it's like, how the fuck do I move about my day and act normal?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's hard.
Did you have a significant other at the time? Because my wife, she can tell when I'm having a bad day.
Yeah, I was with my wife, you know, and actually when this happened to me specifically, I went on a crazy run. This is what we were talking a little bit before the podcast, where I made a ton of money, and it was literally over $1 million. But then market conditions changed.
Yeah.
And when the market conditions changed, I failed to adapt to those conditions because my bias, and this is the problem, this is why I don't have a daily bias anymore. My bias was the Fed is continuing to raise rates, inflation is still super high. There should be no reason as to why the markets are going to recover and go up. Like, we're going to see a crash. We're going to see the markets continue to go down. So any opportunity I found to short, I'd short. Shorting breaks at lows of day, like any opportunity. And really quick, my net P&L of $1 million went down to a little bit under 700K. I literally lost like 300 something thousand dollars. It was really around like 280 something thousand dollars. But after withdrawals fees and everything from the brokerage, it was like, wow. I couldn't believe
it. It feels like you lose your edge.
Yeah,
right?
And this happened in 3 days for me, and my wife was expecting. So I just didn't know how to feel. I withdrew all of my money from every trading account because I knew at that point, like, I'm a danger to myself. And it was just
probably
like,
the smartest thing you could have done.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I don't know if you're like active in the crypto Twitter space, but people are round tripping like generational wealth. It's sickening, bro.
Yeah, no, it's like, bro.
People are up, you know, five mil, lose all of it.
I know.
It's like,
especially
what are you really
in the
doing?
space too. It's
just
crazy.
like, you gotta always protect the downside, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's the big thing.
I feel like that's what makes a great trader though, is how well can you lose.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really what it comes down to. Now I wanted to kind of touch up on a different subject here. So then when it came to you actually going through the learning curves, how did you deal with the struggling times? How did you deal with the times where you were down?
To be honest, like at times I just took breaks from the market. Like I would disappear and not trade for like 3-6 months. And then I got the itch again because I just hated my job, the situation I was in. And I was like, this is like the only way out for me. Because I don't know, for whatever reason, I just didn't get the opportunities that I thought I should have been given at my career. I was like a smart guy. I always took on like new jobs and stuff. But like when it came time to like get a raise or get a promotion, I was always just hitting that ceiling. And I was like, you know what? Trading is like the only thing where nobody could tell me how much I can make. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%.
Like even in business, I have to rely on a customer. I have to rely on some other people to help me generate and operate that business. Trading is the only thing where I could go to, you know, there's no strings attached. All I have to do is click a button. I can make as much or as little as I want.
Yeah.
Right. So like that definitely kept me going. And I think during the hard times, I just had to like, you know, realign myself with what my long-term goal was because it's so difficult. I know so many traders that start trading, they're doing good for like a couple months and then they just give up on it.
And what do you have to say to those traders that give up?
I think you have to, first of all, like find out if this is even for you, because not a lot of people have like the risk appetite for it, or they don't have the resilience for it either.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out like if this is even for you. Like maybe this is not the career for you.
And you know what's funny? Because I saw a test online the other day that basically would tell you what type of person you are financially. And they gave you 3 options. It's like, I think the test asked something along the lines of like, all right, well, if the market was going to crash and you had this information before, where would you actually put your money in? Or it's something along the lines of like, what would you invest your money into? The first one was gold. The second one was Bitcoin. The third one was CDs. And obviously for those that chose Bitcoin, you were risk tolerant. For those that chose gold, you were very looking for security. And then CDs is even worse. Like you're the most conservative, right? You know?
Yeah.
And not tolerant to risk at all.
Yeah.
So for me, it's kind of like
a risk
I don't
taker,
think. Yeah. Oh, for me, I chose Bitcoin all day.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put my money into something, even if the market's gonna crash. For me, it's better because in that way, I'm buying Bitcoin at a cheaper discount. You know. But I feel like that's a problem with myself because the money that you make from trading, you're not gonna get those returns anywhere else. I mean, if you think about this from your perspective, it costs you maybe a couple, $2,500 to get 20 different Apex accounts. I'm talking about on that one run, who knows how long or before, right?
Yep.
It costs you $2,500 and you've essentially turned $2,500 into 1.2.
Even if it cost me $100,000, even if it cost me $250,000,
you're not going to get that return anywhere else in the time span that you have. But it's not that you made that money in these last 3 months. It took you 14 years.
Yeah, exactly. Because you still, like, don't forget with Apex, you got to trade till you get 6 payouts. That's a long time.
Yeah.
It's like
before you
two or 3 months. Imagine not going on tilt for 2 or 3 months, right? Most people can't do that.
Yeah.
They can't even go a week. So, I mean, with trading, like, it's weird because you almost stop respecting money, right? Like, it's like, all right, well, I can risk 10K, but unless it's like in your hands, it's so hard to like detach, you know, still have that relationship with money because like your job as a trader is to almost detach from money, right? So when you're losing crazy amounts of money, it's hard to stop the bleeding. Yeah. Because sometimes you can make it quick and you can lose it just as quick.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me on my huge losing streak. I was so detached because
like,
I was literally making, I was literally making 100 grand almost back to back. And I mean, this happened in the span of less than 30 days, realistically. And I was so detached that once I lost,
that's how I feel right now.
Yeah, once I lost 50 G's, I was like, okay, well, I'll make it back, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, but you know what's crazy? You actually just kind of brought this up. When I go to the casino, it's a different story because the chips are right
in
there
front of you,
in my hand. And
so your size is not as big, right?
No,
you're not doing no limit.
It's not the same. And when I lose, I get into that mode where it's like, I want to revenge trade.
Yeah.
I want to make that back. I want to double my size after a big loss because this one has to hit, you know? And I'm like, wow, like I think if I apply more of my trading concepts onto the actual casino and think of it as probabilities instead of just, you know, I'm just playing blackjack or baccarat, I could probably make more money.
Yeah.
And that's what's, but
It's just our value. And the crazy thing is, what people don't recognize when they're first getting out and starting trading, like some of them are taking really good trades.
Yeah.
But it's like, I worked so hard, but I only made 50, 100, 200 bucks.
Yeah.
That same trade that you took could be the same trade that you take 5 years from now, but now you're making $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. It's the same trade, you're just putting more size on, right? So like, if you buy one share of Tesla and it goes up, you know, 5%, just imagine what that same trade would be if you had 100 shares of Tesla.
Yeah.
It's just a multiplication.
or especially if you're trading options.
Exactly.
You buy
So the
Tesla
options,
calls.
right? It's
Yeah.
you're getting 100 shares right off the bat.
Yeah, which is actually crazy because I've seen some options contracts go up 5,000%,
Yeah.
6,000% in a day, which is absolutely insane.
But again,
options
it's like
is a completely
the
different
downside. People can't protect the downside, so like they make
Yeah.
the $5,000, and then now they're risking the $5,000 on the next trade. Just like keep your sizing consistent. So
Yeah.
if you're gonna buy one contract, just keep buying one contract, and then when you start leveling up, start
Yeah.
slicing up slowly. Don't go from one contract to 5 contracts now because you can afford it, right?
Yeah, one
Like,
contract,
Work your
two,
way
two,
up. You gotta,
three.
you gotta build. There's levels to the game, right?
So then what type of plan do you have to increase your size?
Honestly, so I'm not really trying to increase my size like once a quarter maybe. So like just continue following the rules, continue like, you know, I guess at least following the plan that I know I've put in place. Because I'll tell you, like this week, I've had days that were red that I lost like 50K on those Apex accounts. I did everything that I was supposed to do. But you can't look at the P&L like that, right? You have to follow the process, the routine for long periods of time.
Yeah, you have to be system oriented instead of result oriented.
And then as far as like scaling, I'm working with a firm in Chicago now to try and like scale my capital.
Yeah, I want to
And,
bring
like,
that up.
Yeah.
So can you explain that? What is it specifically?
So it's just a brick and mortar prop firm, and I think this is the benefit of networking with other traders. One of my students actually, he's in the industry, so he sees that I'm doing well. He's in my room seeing me call live trades all week long. He put me in touch with them. I basically sent them like my entire records of all the prop firm payouts. They were pretty impressed. But of course, it's just like any other prop firm. They're only starting me out with a small runway. I have to prove myself first.
Yeah.
If you were an investor, you would do the same thing, right?
100%.
Like if I was running an actual prop firm, I'd probably bring on a junior trader. I'd probably put them in the demo environment and see how they do.
Yeah.
Because I can't see how they're trading. I don't know how they're going to react to certain things, like how they're going to manage their emotions. So it's the same thing. It's
So you're gonna trade remotely.
yeah. So basically, I can do what I'm doing. Everything. You know, nothing changes. I can stay where I'm at.
Are there? I'm not too sure how much you could really touch up on and talk about this, but are there any specific risk parameters that are very similar
No, so
to the
they've
online
given me
prop
like a
space?
downside risk limit, and that's basically it. So I know at some firms they probably have like daily limits and stuff like that, contract sizes, but this one they've kind of given me
It's kind of
free
like
rein.
one max loss.
I think most of the traders there are like senior traders, so they kind of already know what they're doing. You know, other firms are different. They have junior traders. You got to go in there in person.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, I just have a downside risk limit, how much I can lose, and I'm basically given free reign to trade however I want.
So is that your long-term vision? Is
Yeah,
to
I think
trade
so.
off for this
I like it.
company?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I talk with the guys over there. They're very well aware of the prop space, and they bring it up like, you know, they're basically bucket shops. I don't know if you've read Reminiscences of a Stock Operator.
No, but I have started reading One Good Trade recently.
Okay, so Reminiscences of a Stock Operator just follows like the career of Jesse Livermore. This is back in like, I think the late 1800s or something. He used to trade at like a bucket shop, and this was like not on the trading floor. They actually didn't have the right price feeds, and they were basically slipping people and like giving them wrong data, and they were basically just taking their money.
Wow.
And it's interesting because now I'm talking with the senior guys over at this other prop firm, and they basically see the retail space just like that. They're like bucket shops essentially, where a lot of the traders that don't know what they're doing, they're failing at. But that dude Jesse Livermore made millions at those bucket shops because he had an edge, right? So like he was able to, I guess, you know, find that edge in that broken slot machine, as Lance would say, and just exploited it.
Wow.
So like essentially, yeah, I don't know where the retail prop space is going to go. Maybe it's going to get regulated. I have no idea. I mean, it seems like more and more like legitimate prop firms are like buying up entities or like opening their own, like think markets. FCMO bought Oanda. I have no idea what they're going to do with that.
Yeah, I think more. I think really it's just going to come down to the traders who actually make money need to trade real capital and in real environments. That's really what it comes down to. So,
because that's their biggest liability.
Yeah, prop firms now that are operating at least have to have that pathway and it be structured.
Yeah, exactly. You can't just bring any random guy that hit a couple payouts and put him on live account.
No, of course. You have to have your own risk team to actually analyze.
Exactly.
That,
I mean, maybe it's just like they automatically set the size on the back end. So like if this trader starts, going overboard, they start sizing up. At least the systems on the back end aren't going to like blow out your accounts when they do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like that's why Top Step does it the way they do, where once you get to that live account, essentially all the profits that you've generated have been put into the live account.
And then you have the option of withdrawing it if you want.
Yeah, which then you're trading like at a traditional brokerage. I feel like that's part of like the route the majority of profits.
I think they also implement like size limits. I don't think you go past like a certain amount of contracts.
Yeah, in the beginning they have size limits from my understanding. Yeah. But after the live account, I'm not too sure. Which is very interesting to see. I feel like that's the route most prop firms.
Yeah, it's an interesting industry. It's an interesting industry for sure. Like,
yeah, for sure. The retail space compared to it. Yeah. But I feel like that's also good in the same way because, I mean, imagine the opportunity. You have such an amazing opportunity in front of you right now to trade at an institution. That's what you want to do, and you're following it, But who knows if that same route would be there if you didn't have the prop firms.
I know. I don't think it would be because, back when I graduated college, I had applied to a bunch of real prop firms. They're not looking at my resume. You know what I mean? They're like, who's this guy? Even if you have a track record, you have to have like some type of connection or be like Ivy League and be like a math genius, which I'm not. I'm not a math genius. Like I'm Asian, yes, but I'm not a math genius whatsoever. I think I've gotten better with my math, but it's just rudimentary. Like, what R multiple? Like, how much am I risking on this trade? How much?
It's very simple math.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't need to know geometry to get into
even first grade math.
Yeah, literally. So that's hilarious. Well, if you had at least two things, or maybe even just one thing that you feel like the viewers, every trader that's watching this needs to know that they want to get to your position, what would that be?
To really have a structured approach to your learning, like figure out how long you think it might take you and like kind of set yourself up for that. Like, what are the steps do I need to take in order to hit that level? Because I know there's a lot of traders out there that want to get to that next level, but they're not doing things as simple as journaling. Like I have students in my group too that just aren't doing a good job journaling. They'll journal for like 2 or 3 weeks and then drop off. They're done. I haven't seen a journal entry from this one person in like, months. And it's like, are you really taking this seriously, first of all?
How bad do you want it?
And how bad do you want it? Just like, have a long-term target, because when I started getting traction, I was like, all right, I'm gonna give myself like 3 to 5 years before I can go full-time. And now I think was a realistic timeline.
Yeah.
Just to build up the funds, make sure I have a good safety net in place. So, if it didn't work out, I could always cover my bills, things like that. So like definitely have at least a structured approach, like set milestones for yourself. Even as far as sizing too. When I first started trading, I was trading a micro lot in FX, which was like, it's like 10 cents a bit.
Yeah, like 0.01.
And I think when I started sizing up too fast, it just got way too out of hand. So like, have a structured learning approach. How many hours a week am I going to study? How many hours a week am I going to backtest? How many hours a week do I dedicate to live trading? Because that's important too. It's a lot, right? Like you have to build this huge skill set that takes a long time. So you have to have a structured approach to what you're doing. And, figure out what your weakest point is. Maybe it's psychology. So maybe you want to focus on that first. Maybe it's the technicals. You want to focus on that first. But don't try and do everything all at once. That's how you're going to overwhelm yourself and you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
Because you want the Bugatti, you know what I mean? Yeah. You're going to burn yourself out by trying to do too much all at once.
Yeah. And you know what? That's actually a really great thing to bring up, because a lot of people ask me, it's like, oh, I just started trading. Should I get into order flow right away? And to me, it's like, for order flow, for me, it's really just the icing on the cake.
It's just another layer to your analysis.
You still need to know price action. You still need to know market structure. You still need to know technical analysis. So start there first, then you can
master it first. Get really good at those things first.
100%.
So like even with ICT, if you're not familiar, I was just trading fair value gaps. and which is basically just a really large candle. And it just retraces into that candle and then takes off. But that was what I focused on first. I wasn't trying to do everything all at once, because when you start doing it all at once, now you're just like a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
Right? You want to just focus and get really good at it first before you start adding things to your system.
Yeah, before you start looking at where you can increase on your strength.
Exactly. Then it becomes like refining.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Find something that works first, though. You can be very simple. Moving average crossover.
Supply and demand.
Exactly.
You know, there's just so many different things. But yo, Kyle, thank you so much. I appreciate you for taking the time every day to make it to the podcast and provide value to everybody watching this. Thank you again, bro. And
thank you.
You know what? For those of you guys that want to find more information on Kyle specifically, all of his information will be down in the description. Make sure you guys check out his YouTube channel and his Instagram. We'll see you for the next one.